Two candidates are vying for their shot at taking on Democratic first-term Representative Eric Sorensen in the 17th Congressional District. That spans north of Bloomington-Normal, west through Peoria to the Quad Cities, and then north to Rockford. WGLT's Lindsay Jones has more on the two Republicans running in the March 19th primary.
There are some ways in which it's difficult to tell Scott Crowl and Joe McGraw apart as candidates. They're both retirement-age men, they're both Republicans, and their political platforms frequently overlap. Take, for instance, their stances on immigration at the U.S.'s southern border. As is typical for Republicans, both candidates are touting border security as among their main concerns for Illinois' 17th Congressional District. This is Joe McGraw's to-do list for the border if he were elected U.S. representative.
Secure the border, finish the wall, and return to the Trump-era policies of remain in Mexico and do the vetting of those seeking asylum while they're in Mexico.
And this is Scott Crowell's.
We shut the border down. We let only people who apply legally in, and we don't just have the border running rapid. If it takes deploying the National Guard or whatever, that's what we need to do.
The overlaps continue into other policy positions. Green energy, for instance, is of particular importance to the 17th District, given EV manufacturer Rivian's presence in Normal. Crowell and McGraw didn't say much when asked about green energy. Instead, they both pivoted to energy independence. So when asked about their priorities, they both say they're disappointed with the Biden administration stances on offshore drilling. The number of permits issued for offshore wells and drilling has hit a record low under this administration. Joe McGraw frequently points back to the Trump administration for reference.
We have to go back to obtaining and exporting petroleum products the way we did under the previous administration. That's good for the economy, it's good for the country, it's good for national security.
And Scott Crowl says he doesn't support any mandates regarding energy consumption, saying the market alone should decide.
It isn't available today. We need to generate into it versus mandating it when we're not ready for it. The market will take care of itself if we let it take care of itself. When we mandate it, we're just asking for trouble.
So where these candidates do diverge significantly lies in background and campaign finance. Joe McGraw spent 2 decades as a judge for the 17th Judicial Circuit. He was first appointed, then later elected judge in 2002, and that's part of where his law and order political platform comes into play.
As a judge, I just retired in July and saw the consequences of Biden's open border policy in the last couple of years. In my courtroom, I saw the results of crimes being committed against Americans by illegals. I saw the impact on human trafficking at a human trafficking court.
Scott Crowl, on the other hand, touts his complete outsider political status. He spent nearly 40 years working at the Quad Cities International Airport, first for Air Wisconsin, then for the airport itself. And while working at the airport, he was a workers' union member and eventually union president. He also farms 500 acres. Crowl believes that as both a farmer and a former union member, he'll have cross-party appeal to both Republicans and Democrats.
I can take and identify with the Reagan voters, the Democrat Reagan voters. And that's what we need to get this district flipped over to the Republican Party, is somebody who can identify with those Reagan voters.
It's been about 4 decades since Reagan was in office, so Crowl clarifies what he means by Reagan Democrats.
They're the ones with the common sense that says, hey, the country's going in the wrong direction. We need to right it. And that's what happened when Ronald Reagan ran against Jimmy Carter. They saw the country out of control with inflation, bad deficits, and no jobs.
Numbers show that the 17th Congressional District is a competitive one. When incumbent Democrat Eric Sorensen won in 2022, he beat his Republican challenger Esther Joy King by just 4 percentage points. But whether either Republican turns the 17th into a swing district will depend on how successful their campaign is, which, for better or worse, depends at least partly on funding. And that perhaps is the biggest difference between McGraw and Crowl. According to data from the Federal Election Commission, McGraw is substantially more flush with cash than Crowl. As of December 31st, McGraw received nearly $250,000 in contributions. Receipts indicate the money comes from a mix of individual donors, but also political groups like Common Sense McLean County, Grow the Majority, and the American Revival PAC, which funds Republican House Speaker Mike Johnson as well. Crowl has far less in the bank. Of the total $62,000 reported by the FEC on December 31st, most of that came from a loan. Just a few $1,000s were actual donations, and contributions are mostly from individuals. Financially, it seems, the party has backed only one of the two Republicans running for the 17th Congressional District. I'm Lindsay Jones.
Only one of the two Republicans running in the 17th Congressional District has snagged the endorsement of former State Representative Dan Brady. Brady has endorsed Joe McGraw. Early voting is underway ahead of the election in 2 weeks. You can get more information about all the primary races at wglt.org/election2024.